Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us and coming on the LogiPharma podcast.
My pleasure.
Great to do it live as well in Vienna, so this is very exciting. How are you doing?
Doing very well, doing very well. Looking forward to my keynote later on the day.
I was waiting to say, when is the keynote? How's that?
I think a couple hours from now, yeah.
Oh, okay, so once you get done with that, it'll be much better. But it'd be great if you could just introduce yourself to start us off, kind of talk us through what your careers looked like, how you got there, just a bit about you, really.
Sure. So I'm Joydeep Ganguly. I'm the Chief Operations and Quality Officer at Agilent Technologies. Agilent's one of the world's leading companies that focuses on diagnostics, instrumentation, contract manufacturing, and basically enables biopharma companies and other industries to do their best work by providing trusted answers. It's a great job right now. Prior to this, I was 10 years at Gilead Sciences, where I was the Senior Vice President of Corporate Operations and their Chief Sustainability Officer. And before that, I was at Biogen for 10 years. So deeply attracted to the life sciences industry. It's sort of heritage of being the son of doctors. My entire family is full of doctors. So I think medicine was always very close to my family right now. So it was a very natural choice to sort of follow the footsteps of my family, and super proud to be part of the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I was going to follow up with, of what drew you in, but it must have been the family connection there, and you kind of carved the route out by yourself.
It was, and I studied electrical engineering and mathematics growing up right now, and when I graduated, the industry was at the precipice of some extraordinary innovation in the space right now. So I think empiricists were trying to figure out ways to add a ton of value into the overall value chain. And it was just a very wonderful sort of choice of taking interdisciplinary flavors of where math could add value in a space that was typically dominated by biologists and chemists. So a combination of having a lifelong front row seat to medicine, coupled with deep study in areas that I felt could add value.
I imagine like family dinners and stuff are quite heavily, it dominates the conversation.
It is, yeah.
Amazing. And that kind of follows into how, in your kind of perspective, has the industry changed over time, I guess, since you've been working on it? Does it look completely different, or is it?
It does, and it's a cliche to say that the industry changes, but in my 25 years of working, this is as radical of a digital disruption as I'm seeing, especially in supply chain. I joked with somebody I met this morning that we've gone from being a industry that for years had a maniacal obsession with just-in-time to now trying to develop more predictive resilience as opposed to reactive recovery. So it's almost like you've gone from a just-in-time culture to developing scenario modeling and figuring out how you can do predictive analytics in this space right now. So it's almost like we've gone from this very linear view of our supply chains to now thinking of it as being a true interconnected ecosystem where things like resilience, agility, and purpose have never been more important. So it's a great time to be in the space, but definitely one of those periods where I've seen a tremendous amount of evolution.
Absolutely. And I guess since we always speak about when we're at LogiPharma that it's just LogiPharma itself has grown since COVID particularly. Do you find that that's kind of since COVID it's just been one kind of supply chain disruption after the other, and how do you kind of manage that, I guess?
Absolutely, and it's not just one disruption after the other. I kind of feel structural volatility has now become the norm. And system resilience, which used to be a one-off project, has now become core to a company's fabric right now. So I came to the conference, I think 4 or 5 years ago, where we were trying to figure out how to handle the pandemic, and it was putting into question all the models that we had grown up implementing, and to now be in a place where volatility is the norm. And it's very much a case of building this predictive capability into the supply chains right now, and getting to the point where we're no longer thinking in terms of deterministic models but probabilistic models. And that's the mindset shift that's defining, I think, how supply chain leaders are approaching this. And you can just see this in the quality of the keynotes in this conference right now. A lot of it is around figuring out how we become more resilient as a network.
Absolutely, including your own one as well. Obviously, that's the one to go to in a few hours.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask as well, do you have a defining career moment, kind of stand out, I've climbed the mountain, I've reached the top moment, or any kind of key decisions that have, a hard question, that one, I appreciate it.
No, I mean, from a career perspective, I've been very, for me, it's been having a growth mindset, right? So I've always, I've learned a lot from every opportunity I have, and over time, I think I get more attracted to positions and opportunities that allow me to evolve my leadership style. So it's not just the technical depth that attracts me, it's more about working with mentors, getting outside my comfort zone. A great example was the job I'm in right now. I mean, I'm a lifelong, innovator pharma guy. You spend a lot of time at Gilead, a lot of time at Biogen, and then joining the other side of the calculus right now was a big sort of risk for me. But it's where the magic happens from a growth perspective. So there's no one defining moment, but it's always been about stepping outside the comfort zone, getting into roles where you have to learn from scratch, and always surrounding yourself with the best teams and mentors.
I feel like that's quite a nice kind of segue into what we're going to talk about later, the kind of growth mindset, so that's good. I guess before we get into kind of the big topic of our conversation, what's kind of the biggest challenge that you're facing at the moment, and also biggest opportunity, I guess, on the flip side?
The biggest challenge is the complexity and the structural volatility I talked about. It's putting into question a lot of things that we put into place, and three sort of micro challenges within this, right? I mean, obviously, we now have to think like an interconnected system. There's this massive digital debt that we've incurred by not investing in supply chain systems for decades right now that we are recognizing we need to work through. No longer are digital silos acceptable. Now people are talking about digital twins and people are talking about artificial intelligence. They all require a fundamental purchase on data aggregation. So there's that aspect, and then there's obviously the other aspect of multi-tier blind spots. Because as we have supply chains that are more and more complicated, resiliency comes with a price. Yeah, you tend to make dual source your supply chain, and these supply chain constructs end up creating complexity. So those are the challenges. I think the most exciting part of the supply chain right now is it's never become more relevant to a company's value chain. The supply chain conversations are now entering the boardroom as opposed to being more of an efficiency paradigm that ops leaders used to think about. So the ability for us to unleash and activate a new level of leadership that can drive the next generation of value in this space is what excites me.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into the main topic. Remind me again, when your session's in the afternoon. Perfect. So people can come and get the full thing later on.
Yeah, so I'm talking a little bit about a practitioner, practical point of view on 4IR, or Fourth Industrial Revolution technologies, and Agilent's sort of journey in achieving it. Agilent's one of the few companies that has 4 lighthouse factories, which are designated as factories that have achieved the highest standard in digital innovation. And instead of talking about the technologies we deployed, I think I'm spending a lot of time talking about the mindset shifts, the ethos, the mental models that had to shift, as well as some of the results in terms of making sure that these kind of innovations don't exist only on the hype part of the curve, but actually do give value at a deep, profound level. So a lot of it's a practitioner point of view, but it's based on the journey that the bright engineers and digital practitioners in Agilent undertook.
Amazing. Well, let's start there then. Let's kind of go through your vision, I guess. We're kind of talking about from you kindly sent me your slides, so I got a sneak peek of what it's going to be about. But this idea of reinvesting people, reframing the measure of matter. Maybe let's just set the scene there of kind of what that's going to look like.
Yeah, so first of all, let's maybe take a step back to take a look at what 4IR is, right? It's not a set of tools right now. The third industrial revolution was a phenomenal one from a digital perspective. It unfortunately drove a very linear way of approaching things. It looked at if then else, right? It allowed us to sort of say, if a machine breaks, let's fix this. If we do this, we do this. Rigid models right now, and I think this 4IR revolution that we're undertaking right now requires us to think far more broadly about a systems way of approaching a supply chain. So in my talk, I'm talking a lot about the role that people development, leadership development, ensuring that we continue to upskill the talent we have right now. It's not about taking the human out of the loop, it's actually bringing everyone along to try and achieve a higher level of process consciousness. So, there's a lot about the mental models we have to undertake, the growth mindset we have to undertake, but also there's a huge component of ensuring that we take this as a very human-centered transformation as opposed to just purely a digital one.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we've kind of come to LogiPharma previously, part of our kind of social game is kind of talking about kind of what's a hype and what's not. Obviously, this is quite, high-level innovation stuff, but I just want to ask, how do you separate real innovation from just kind of your standard hypes?
That's a great question. So first of all, you've got to recognize and be cognizant of what's hype and what's not. And I have a sort of litmus test on the hype versus reality that I sort of boil it down to 3 major things. One is, this is the so what test for operations. So once you develop a technology or an innovation, what's the value that we realize? What's the actual value that you see on the floor? Number 2 is the innovation deeply integrated or is it a hobby? right? So it's the integration versus isolation argument. If it's integrated in this entire space where it is now a part of a habit for the operation staff, or is it just a side hobby? And the third aspect is, can it be sustained over time? So that's the way I see the hype versus innovation sort of dilemma: integration versus isolation, cultural resilience, and ensuring it's sustained over time.
Absolutely. And what does a 21st century supply chain look like compared to 10 or 15 years ago, I guess? Let's kind of go back in time, and then what does it look like now?
If I had to summarize it and just trying to be pithy here, I mean, I think that legacy supply chains were very linear. Right now, it's a network. They were more focused on retrospective reactive recovery than they were on predictive resilience. And I think the role of data was more in retrospective reactive ways as opposed to the predictive intelligence and the velocity we're seeing right now. So higher velocity of intelligence, a lot less linear, a lot less more of a network right now, and one where I think, it'll be remiss of me to say, one where sustainability now is no longer restricted just to a CSR report, but part of a operational metric from a day-to-day perspective.
Absolutely. I guess with that note, kind of we'll come to the next part of our story, but what technology is having the most impact right now? I know kind of we always talk about AI whenever I chat to anyone at conferences. All they want to talk about is AI, but I guess what is having the most impact?
I'll give an irreverent answer here. I actually don't think one particular technology.
I love that answer.
I think it's actually the interplay between technologies, business practices, human-centered training, and it's companies that are able to look at this holistically as an ecosystem that are having the wins as opposed to just investing in technology. Someone once told me that transformations are 10% technology, 20% process redefinition, and 70% about people and culture. So I think the question that perhaps we should be asking is, what is the secret sauce that companies that are benefiting by investing in the overall ecosystem have right now? So I wouldn't say there's a particular technology that wows me. It's the technology when it lives in the entire overall innovation ecosystem.
Absolutely. I guess like with most technology as well, it's more of it's a human issue as well. That's kind of a big thing. Digital transformation, is it a kind of, where would you sit in what camp would it be? Would it be a kind of, it's a technology issue, or is it a human and culture issue? How does that kind of balance? How do you find that?
I mean, I'll take a strong position here. I see as...
Go for it. We love a strong position on the podcast.
I mean, I see this as a absolute human issue masquerading as a technology problem, right? I mean, most cultural transformations fail because of people, right? And not about the technology. I mean, the best way I describe it is all technology does, it adds a capability. It's the human engagement that adds the context. So for me, it is absolutely a human-centered issue.
And then in that sense, in your talk, you're going to talk about mindsets as well. So that kind of idea of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. What's the kind of biggest mindset shift that's required to embrace the fourth industrial revolution?
I mean, for me, it's two things, right? It's being comfortable with change.
Yeah.
The job descriptions of tomorrow are being rewritten today as we speak.
Yeah.
No one can predict where things are going to land right now. It's the people that are most comfortable with change that will succeed. And the second thing is to move out of this deterministic way of thinking to this probabilistic way. Yeah. There is going to be, the conversation I had with a peer executive this morning was moving from just in time to just in case.
Yeah.
Right? The just in time supply chain is dead.
Yeah.
I think from my perspective, it's about scenario planning, understanding the probabilities, developing these what-if plans, and organizations that are able to drive a higher level of resilience with a much lower footprint through things like partnership and technology and transformations are the ones that are going to redefine the supply chains of the next century.
100%. And I guess for anyone that might come and attend your talk later today, what are the kind of key takeaways that you want them to kind of get from it? What's the kind of key message, the standout message?
Two things primarily. One thing is I'm going to focus very heavily on the word ecosystem. It's not about the technology or a particular business process. It's about taking the entirety. And the second word I will leave them with is the most impactful case studies are the ones that are done at scale. They're not done in pilot mode. So what you're going to see today right now is Agilent's approach to not just AI, but 4IR technologies. But hopefully the scale is what's going to impress people, because that's where you really get the big bang for buck.
And I guess like if kind of it's open to Q&A as well, what could be the kind of most commonly asked questions that someone in the audience might ask you while you're having the chat? What would you like them to kind of dive deeper into?
I think the questions that will come about is the change curve. How do we get everybody? What commitment do we have from the top? How much did we invest? What's the ROI? And I've got a slide in there about the metrics we used from a value realization perspective. And I think holding ourselves accountable to those kind of very hard, ruthless metrics was key as well. And the final question might be around how can this translate to their industry?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I guess just to wrap it up, it's great to kind of dive a bit more into yourself as well. Is there a piece of career advice that you've been given that kind of stand out to you, kind of help shape how you've got in there? Or is it bits and pieces from different leaders over time?
Take risks, be comfortable in yourself, be secure in your skill set, and have a growth mindset.
Absolutely. And if you could make one more industry prediction for the next, let's say 10 years from now, we're back at LogiPharma 2036, what's one prediction you'll have for the industry?
Now, this is going to be super irreverent.
Go for it.
I think we will move from being patient-centric to being patient-specific. I think the days of personalized medicine are here. The abilities for supply chains to be more nimble, more agile, more resilient, be able to have this N of one patient sort of value chain right now. So I think the specificity of the ability for us to have N of one batches, N of one patients, N of one trials, will be supported by a supply chain that is resilient beyond our current imagination. So I hope we get to that.
Absolutely. And we're filming this at the start of LogiPharma as well. You're kind of our first podcast. You've come at the bright stage of 10 a.m. on day one. What are you most looking forward to across the next 3 days? Beyond your own session as well. That's obviously stand out.
I love the talks. Obviously, the high quality talks. But for me, it's about the networking. I get to meet some of the brightest minds in this industry. And I can't believe it's a year since I was here last right now.
It is mad. It's scary how quickly this year has gone.
It's scary how many of these presentations were ideas last year and our case studies this year. So the scale and pace of innovation are always impressing me. But it's about the networking. It's about learning from colleagues. It's about seeing the innovation. And it's about seeing how we can get back to having a more resilient ecosystem. So I love meeting the people here. The quality of the keynotes are amazing. So always glad to be back.
Amazing. And this is my last question. This is the one that everyone finds difficult when we do a bit of social stuff. How would you describe LogiPharma in one word?
Inspiring.
Amazing. Any last thoughts for the podcast?
I'm good. Thank you so much for the time.
Of course. Thank you so much for joining me. Perfect. Thank you so much.